Hotel in this edition of Here and Now. My name is Janet Mbugua. Thank you for tuning in to NTV. Now, it's a pretty hot issue. We're talking about abortion, and it has long been a really hot issue. It's emotive and it's divisive. On the one side are those that are pro-choice and believe that political and cultural views impede on a woman's rights. On the other hand is the pro-life group. They maintain that abortion is akin to the murder of an innocent life. The recent High Court ruling that abortion is illegal unless the life of the expectant is in danger has fueled the debate further. It's left many confused about where the country really stands on the issue. And so tonight on Here and Now, we hear different sides of the argument. We'll also engage with you online, so be sure to use the hashtag HereAndNowKE on Twitter to weigh in and share your views on how we can actually move this debate along. Let's now welcome our guests who are with us today. We have Pete Odera. He is a pastor. He's also an author, he's a father, he wears many hats, and he's going to weigh in on the issue as well. We have Nyasha Chingore, she's a reproductive rights lawyer. Thank you for joining us this evening. We have Martin Onyango, a lawyer who successfully challenged the ban on abortion services. I should actually say he's the one who's kind of brought us here tonight because he reignited the debate. Thank you so much for joining us. And Dr. Sheikh, Hassan, an Islamic scholar as well. And we have our mini audience. I think you should clap for yourselves and clap for our panel. And so before we get into the discussion, let's take a look and a listen at a story from a woman who had an abortion when she was 15. Let's listen in on her experience.
Nilikuwa na 15 years and nilipata pregnancy. Nikiwa na have my first sex. Niliamua kuiterminate juu nilikuwa mdogo, hata sikuwa najua anything about kulea, alafu babake bado pia tulikuwa tu the same age, so hatungeweza kuraise mtoi, so tukaamua to terminate the pregnancy. Zilikuwa tembe 3 and moja unameza na 2 una insert kutoka huko chini. The sister to my boyfriend tulimuelezea na yeye ndiye akatupatia pesa na akatuambia twende mahali fulani na fulani tubai. 2016 nilipata mimba na ikatoka. Ni kama hiyo kitu nilifanya kutumia hizo tembe bila daktari, ni kama ile ni affect. Ilikuwa karibu hata nikufe. The third pregnancy nilipata when I was married because nilidecide to move in. Unajua hiyo at first kitu nilifanya inaweza kweli ilini affect, ndio maana the second pregnancy ilitoka. So nilikuwa nataka mtu mwenye niko sure hata nikapata mimba yake anaweza nisaidia kule huyo mtu. Nikapata mtu hii at 7 months. That was 2017. Akasurvive for only 1 day na he passed away. Tena nikajaribu. After 6 months, I got pregnant again. Nikapata mtu hii at 6 months. Akakaa nursery for 2 months, but he's alive. At times me feel like mimi niliua watoi wangu mimi mwenyewe. At times me feel hivyo. But in the other hand, na feel ningepata ule mtoi ningeteseka. As in, niko hapo katikati. But me feel hizo miscarriage and hizo vitu zote mimi ndio nilikosa.
So that's a look at that story. She was 15 when she had her first abortion. Martin, I'd like to start with you. What is it that led you to challenge the ban on abortion services, and what's the impact been?
Thank you very much, Janet. In 2010, Kenyans passed a constitution that actually guaranteed access to abortion services when the life or the health of a mother is at risk or in emergency situation. In the year 2012, the government, the Ministry of Health, developed guidelines for provision of abortion services and also for training of nurses, doctors, clinical officers, and midwives on how, when, and who to provide those services. And come the year 2014 in February, the Ministry of Health, without consulting anybody, withdrew those guidelines, withdrew the training curriculum, and banned the training of the various service providers from training on provision of abortion services. What that meant was that, one, you could not get abortion services within the law in any public health institution. Two, there was no longer any training of providers on provision of safe abortion services. There was threat. The effect is that we see many unsafe abortions happening. In the year 2012, the Ministry of Health documented, that is 7 years ago, that Kenya was losing, at the very least, documented 2,600 women and girls every year from unsafe abortion. It simply means we were actually creating a scenario where more and more women and girls are dying from a service that the Constitution has guaranteed access to, but then how to access that service has been taken away, and that action had now created a threat where everybody was afraid to access abortion services when the life or health is in danger, because, quote unquote, we are told abortion is illegal.
Okay. And
so that is why we went to court.
Bringing down the numbers.
We went
of the
to
women.
court to, one, stop the death of women and girls. Two, implement our Constitution. It is not a piece of paper. It guarantees rights. It guarantees the right to health and reproductive health services.
And yet, as you can see from this debate that's global, that's local, sometimes it doesn't even seem that it's that black and white. Yes, there's the law, but there's also the quote-unquote moral codes that come with it. I want to hear from you why you think this remains a hotly contentious issue. Nyasha, maybe from you. And even more, some people argue, well, and this may sound really strange, but this is going into reproductive rights, the fetus and the life of a fetus, and whether we're paying too much attention to that aspect, separate from the rights of the mom and what she can do and the choices she has to not want to raise a baby.
Thank you, Janet, for having me. I wanted to start off a little bit with just the conceptualization of, in the introduction, how you started to introduce the subject when you spoke about, you know, it's an emotive issue and we have a divide between what is so-called pro-choice and what is so-called pro-life. And I think the problem we actually have, Janet, is precisely that. That we seem to believe that people who believe that women should be able to access life-saving services, health services, tend to be given a name that is not pro-life. And I'm not sure what that means, because I believe that when people advocate for the right of women to be able to access services that are life-saving, they are actually defending the right to life. Now, yes, there are a lot of conversations around morality. There's a lot of conversation around our social norms, our cultural norms, sometimes what is put out as religious norms. But I think the reality that we need to face is that human lives are at stake. When Martin speaks about 2,600 lives a year, that is 7 women a day who die from preventable deaths. Okay? Nobody needs to die from an unsafe abortion. It is wholly preventable. And we're losing 7 potentially lives with potential every day for absolutely no reason in this country. And so I do not know what kind of morals, what kind of custom, what kind of religion it is that we're actually talking about if we are okay with losing 7 lives for no reason, because we're talking about preventable deaths.
So it's allowing, just coming from what you're saying, should abortion be legalized across the board, just as a choice for the woman to make, or should it just be only in the case where her life is at stake?
So our constitution has very clear parameters, right, of when Kenya allows permits abortion. And that's clear from the parts of the Constitution that Martin has quoted, that this is in the case where the life of the woman or the girl is in danger, or where her health is in danger. And the recent judgment that was brought to court has defined that a little bit more for us. What does health mean? What does threat to health mean? And so forth and so forth. So yes, I think that the duty that we have as a citizenry, the duty that government has, the duty that all of us have, is to follow the laws that have been set out in the country. And when the law lays out certain parameters and says that this is allowable, then there is no reason why there should be an impediment for women and girls to access services which are legal within our legal framework.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to bring you in. Do you feel that there are any circumstances, I know we've talked about the Constitution, we've talked about the legal grounds and the fact that implementation is needed. In your views, is there any reason why or any reason when abortion is permissible?
First, thank you so much for my two brother and sister. But what I might say is that, you see, when you look at rights, I think rights need to have limits, number one. Number two, when you talk of rights of women to commit abortion or to do abortion, number one, we must go back and realize that it is God who created us. You're talking about prevention. I think the best way for women to prevent abortion is to use protective measures wherever they are having sex, number one. But you see, in Islam, abortion is allowed to a degree. It's allowed if a woman was raped, number one. Number two, if the mother is in danger, we look at that. Because in Islam, we have Islamic principle which says that ma la yudraku kullu, la yutraku kullu. What we cannot prevent, all of it, we prevent what we can. So if a mother is in danger, then we protect her from dying, so we do abortion to her in Islam. Or if a girl was raped, because she will live with that problem of psychological problem and torture because she sees a son or a daughter from abortion, then that's when abortion is allowed in Islam. And it's allowed when that should be done before we get to the third month, because we have the issue of conception, because we believe in Islam in the 121st day. That is when the child gets breath from God. Before then, we can do it. But after that, even if it was anything, then let's do it before the 121st day.
Would you like to react to that, Pete, to those, like, first of all, that rights need limits, and second, if the circumstances under which a woman has conceived, if she's been raped, for example, there's still a time frame within which she cannot reverse that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Dr. Hassan, Martin, and Nyasha are very clear on several aspects. To me, I see the issue as broader than just legal, and I think that Nyasha has already alluded to that. I feel many of the people who are involved in situations like this have no idea necessarily what the Quran says, have no idea necessarily what the law says. Article 26 from 2010 amended by legal passing, so on and so forth. So many of the people, the girl who was 15, what she's going to do, is she going to quote Article 26 and she has a baby? That's not what's going to work. So I think approaching it from a merely legal standpoint is to me, is foolhardy. We must include other parameters that are impinging on that particular. We've talked about two things I think that Martin pointed out. One is health. It's a health issue. Two is legal. It's a legal issue. The good doctor has talked about a third issue, which is, does she come from a particular religion? But I want to say, and I'm glad that you introduced me as a father, if this was my child, my college-age daughter would say to me, Dad, what should I do? So I must be emotionally invested in this thing in order for me to make a judgment. So I think I have 2 or 3 different stances. I'm not sure that the church has a very clear stance as my Muslim brother has there on the 121st day. Because also I find that legalism doesn't give much room for grace, where we're able to then say, you cross the line on this legal issue, therefore. However, grace and justice must prevail. So I feel that we must approach it from a more empathetic perspective. And I think that if we begin to empathize rather than point to the law alone, because I think the law doesn't happen in a vacuum, we must encompass all these things and then begin to make a statement based on empathy, because no 2 women are the same.
I'm curious to see how those can be fused. And I think the issue here is moving this debate along. Right now, it just feels like it's very stagnant and nasty,
right,
and vicious. And yet, how then do we move it along? So we'll come back shortly, get some reactions from our audience, and then also weigh in on, for example, where men lie in this instance as well. You're watching Here and Now. We'll be right back. We're coming to you live from Fairview Hotel. Welcome back. We're coming to you live from the Fairview Hotel. This is Here and Now on NTV. We're talking about the abortion debate. And before we bring it back to our panelists, we have Dr. Sang, who's just joined us. He's a gynecologist. And my question to you is, under what circumstances, if any, do you consider abortion permissible? And then who then is held, quote unquote, accountable for carrying out this abortion? Is it the person who came in for the services? Is it the doctor?
I think somebody had mentioned that it's an emotive issue, and doctors fall into 2 groups, just like the rest of the population. There are those who feel that abortion should be offered on demand, and there are those who feel that it should be only offered if the mother's life is in danger. I fall into the group who feel that it should be offered when the mother's life is in danger. So again, it's a very complicated issue, because a lady usually comes to you when she feels she's run out of options. She doesn't know where to go. She doesn't have a partner. She fears what the parents are going to tell her. And so she feels that this is the only option she has. So at times, again, even we do get even married couples where they come and they want an abortion. So the way I look at it is, at times the first decision is not always the best one. And we've talked to ladies before who later keep the pregnancy and feel that it was the correct way to go. And we've talked to other ladies who eventually go elsewhere and have the abortion. If a lady's, the only situation, for example, where the government does allow us to terminate a pregnancy is if the mother's life is in danger. For example, with preeclampsia or very high blood pressures, very early in pregnancy, which endangers the mother's life, and we do lose a number of women because of that high blood pressure. So we do terminate, and I would feel I would be comfortable to perform that operation for the sake of the mother. In other situations, I wouldn't be too comfortable.
And it's within what time of a pregnancy?
This can occur at any time.
Okay.
Most of the time it occurs in early pregnancy. But there are situations where even when the baby is about 1 kilo or 1.5 kilos, that we may have to terminate, because even at that time, the mother may have complications that could endanger her life.
All right, thank you for weighing in on that. I want to put something out here. We've talked a lot about the mothers whose life is in danger. We've ran that feature about this 15-year-old. I kind of want to veer towards those who may or may not have what you'd call options, for example, victim of rape, of incest, a teenager. They might carry a pregnancy without complications that doesn't harm them in any way, but they don't want to be a mom. They don't want to follow through with that. What happens to them? Because the way the law stands kind of just veers towards if her life is in danger. But sometimes it's not about the fact that her life is in danger. She's 15, she's 16, she's a victim of rape, she doesn't want. What options are there for this woman, given that if she's having a healthy pregnancy, it's kind of like, well, you have to follow through with it because you're okay. But she's feeling like, I don't want to. This is not what I want for myself. But then we're saying, no, you don't fall within the bracket in which abortion is permissible. Where do her options lie? For any of you to answer that.
I think before we get into that, I just want to have a clarification on what is the position of the law. It is not just when the life of the mother is in danger, but when the life or health of the mother is in danger or in emergency situations. But what then the law defines as health and what the court has interpreted health to be is, one, the physical health. You are dying or you are living. Two, it is the mental health. That what is the state of your mental state? What mental state does the pregnancy subject you to? And then three, it is the social well-being of the woman. And
I feel
then
like that casts the net wide, though.
I'm stating what has been stated
Right.
as the law. Whether it casts the net wide or narrow is another debate. But then it is not anybody's decision. The Constitution again restricts that this is a decision that must, the opinion to make determination must be an opinion of a trained health professional. And it is not the doctor. It is the trained clinical officer, it is the trained nurse, it is the trained midwife. Why? Because in my village, in Kanyamkago, there is no doctor. But what happens to that dire situation that the treatment, the remedy is termination? So the law has revolutionized that. What the good doctor has told us is the position then, before 2010, and the position that the actions of the Ministry of Health, by withdrawing those guidelines, left to be prevailing. It is only those who are dying, literally dying, it is that they were the ones who could only access termination under those conditions. But that has since changed. That the court has brought us back to where the Constitution intended us to be. That access to reproductive health services cannot be limited, one, by the level of personnel. Trained health professionals who qualify to provide that service should provide it. But two, it is not on demand, and that is the law in Kenya. That the woman or the girl must subject themselves, they must go for a review by a trained health professional, and it is the decision of that trained health professional that will ultimately prevail. If they determine her condition warrants a termination, then they will have a termination. But as a country, our constitutional framework would not allow you to walk and say, I want. It is the assessment of the trained health professional that will lead to the ultimate decision that indeed what will save your life, what will save your health, what will save your well-being is the termination of the pregnancy.
Okay. Where do you think the position of men lies in all this? And what are your thoughts on his rights? Did you say for him to be responsible? If that's the option that she wants to take, where does he come in?
I'm interested about what Martin is saying, and I think the law is clear. So the law is clear, but it doesn't place the imperative on the man. It doesn't in any way place the imperative on the other party that is involved in this pregnancy. And I tend to find where, mainly in Africa, I suppose, that's the way things are skewed, is that, the guys get away scot-free. But I do want to point us to something interesting. As Martin was speaking, I was thinking, when did we become so legalistic and rigid that we said that this is what it was? I want to use an example that has nothing to do with a life and death situation. I grew up in a time when if you were on the bus and there was an older person in the bus who came into the bus, you stood up for them and you said to them, take the seat. But we're in a time now where, according to Michuki rules, you're not allowed to stand in a bus. Is it right then to obey the law and not stand up, or be empathetic and then stand up for somebody who you honor? And this is the question: what happened to things like honor? What happened to things like, is this the right thing to do outside of the legal framework? Is this the culturally appropriate thing to do? And I think I want to make another point while I'm saying that. When we're talking about the debate about life and stuff, I know you asked me about the responsibility of the man. There's some core elements in that I think are important. Life is sacred. Sex is sacred. Marriage is sacred. Those are things that we've thrown out the door and said, hey, this was just a baby, and you know what? you know, Bay is not interested, so I'm out of here. We must be in a space where we now say there's dynamics in every relation. We cannot, I think the law has to be clear, and I think the law has been clear, and it has been carefully crafted. I don't think that the crafters of the law and the particular judgment based on Article 26 was made carelessly. I don't think that it was. But we understand from observing cases of law that every case has its own merit. So I think that on that judgment, maybe something needs to be, I think it was introduced some time ago about affirmative action and so on. I think the men need to take some kind of responsibility. But, you know, every case has its merit. Can the man take responsibility? Is he able to take responsibility if it's a 15-year-old girl and there's a 17-year-old boy? You know, can you really say you must take responsibility? The 17-year-old in 2019 is not the 17-year-old in 1957.
Right, and I think this is where it gets really tricky. It's because it's almost, you know, every case is so sensitive and so different. Yes, you have the legal framework, but then sometimes it doesn't quite make sense with regards to the situation. I noticed two of you wanted to react to something.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say that I think the law has actually left room for that every case on its merit. That is why it says, if in the opinion of a trained health professional. So what the law is actually saying is that in every single case of every single woman or girl who would feel that a pregnancy that she's carrying might pose a threat to her life or health, that woman or girl should present themselves before a trained health professional. And it is at that point that it is now a determination of, in this particular case, right, is this, you know, a termination that should be done. That is why it actually says that you need the opinion of a trained health professional to make a determination in that case. On the issue of responsibility of men, I think we are conflating several conversations. I think absolutely there's a place for responsibility for men. That place, I think, is around responsibility that does not make decisions for somebody else, and things that then determine somebody else's life path. So I think absolutely we want men to be responsible. We want our legal frameworks to make men responsible and accountable when they have not done right by the law. But at the same time, I hope that the responsibility that we're talking about is not the responsibility of them determining whether or not a particular course of action needs to be taken in a particular situation, because then that becomes quite problematic, because it means that somebody else's opinions are now making a determination over my life path.
Okay, we still have to take a short break, and we'll come back and get your reactions from that and from one or two of our audience members as well, so we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Here and Now live from the Fairview Hotel on the abortion debate. And I'm just wondering if we're hearing that there's certain parameters in place. I want to know where the problem lies, so we'll come back to that. For now, I want to open it up to the audience, and we have a gentleman here who will introduce himself, although he's not new to the show, but for the sake of those who haven't seen him, and you can then raise your comment or your question.
I'm Mariga Thoidi. I'm a communications consultant. So one thing I'd like to bring out is, one, no one has abortions for fun, right? Unfortunately, Pastor P, that's a way in which you brought it out, saying, you know, this is just a baby, let's leave it. No. No woman enjoys having an abortion, right? And so when you're coming at it from a point of empathy, you'd see that there are several factors that lead to abortions, right? There's social and economic factors that lead to abortion. My actual stand is I support abortion almost fully. Right? If you decide that you do not want a child, whether due to economic reasons, social reasons, I support it. Particularly because the people who are having the very loudest views on this are not the women, right? They're not the people who are having abortions, right? If you do not want to have abortions, you don't have your abortion. That is my very firm stand, right? Your right over someone else's body, your right over all these things are very interesting. Because a lot of the societal views of the imposition of your culture and your religion into a law is a very amusing thing. This is not a Christian nation. This is not a Muslim nation. This is not a Buddhist nation. This is a secular nation, literally instituted by the Constitution, right? That is how all of this stands, right? My belief is that if your stand or your belief is okay with somebody else dying, then you should really rethink it, right? I'd like to ask two questions. One, what's the actual Christian stand on abortion?
Right.
And sorry, but not round around empathy. I'd like to know whether it's a yes or a no, and in what specific situations.
Right.
Yes.
So that's directed at me.
Yes.
Okay. So Mariga, I want to answer as clearly as I can. Abortion, according to the Christian principle, is no abortion. But I will say this to qualify what I'm saying, that abortion is wrong. But there's no verse in the Bible that you're going to find that says abortion is wrong. It's not there. It's not there. However, there are verses about murder, but I really want to, like, remember I said, I want us to move away from the legalism of it and begin to put it in practice and say, what are we going to do with XYZ situations? So I think I respect your position, what you say, because I think, like you said, please don't get me wrong, I don't want to trivialize or make frivolous the people who they come to my office and they stand in front of me, they say, I either need to have an abortion, I have just had an abortion. Should I say to this person, you evil, wicked person, because I don't know that, because here's the thing that I found also in my practice is this. I've been a pastor for 15 years, I've been a Christian for forever. And I don't think that where I stand is as important as where you stand. Because the person on the other side, it's their personal responsibility. I cannot decide for you. I think that the law is clear, and the law and what the Christian view stands very much with what the law is saying right now. In the event that there's danger to the health of the baby and the mother and so on, according to Article 26. I think that's pretty much where the Christian viewpoint lies. However, I must say that, again, I err to the side of empathy. I'm not going to be the one to say to you, Mariga, you wicked man, how can you say this about such a great thing? I have stated that the premise of it is three things. The sanctity of life. And you can throw that away if you like, or you can embrace it. Life is sacred. And I like to use an illustration for that. You have a 2-year-old child who you don't know where they are. Do you go out, and I'd like to use a quotation that Dr. Ravi Zacharias has used before, out, your kid is missing somewhere. Do you go out with a pitchfork poking the heaps of hay to find out if they're hiding there? No, you don't. You want to be careful. So I think that we need to err to the side of care and caution. And I think that that's the wise thing to do. Because, like, again, I said earlier, every case has its merit.
Okay. We need to let the others weigh in. Are you satisfied with that? You're still like, there's still a little...
He's not a little question, because my question goes around a lot of these views, especially imposing your own views on someone else, means that you're imposing consequences on someone else that you don't have to live with, right? How do you, what are both of your views on forcing women to have children who they don't want to have, right? You're, through your opinions of some other people's bodies, creating problems and creating situations that you don't have to deal with, but two other people have to deal with for life. You have mothers raising kids they do not want to. You have kids being raised by mothers that do not want to raise their children, creating an extended social problem beyond all this. What are your views on that?
Okay, let's hear from you.
Now, I think I'll start by saying that in Islam, we are told by the Holy Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu dhulu fi silmi kafa. Or you believe, enter in religion fully. I see my brother pastor saying that the law is clear. The law is not clear. And lawyers always keep on saying the law is clear, and they don't know what they're saying. Unless you ask them, what are you saying? And that's why I decided myself...
And we'll hear from them
yes,
in a bit, yes.
And that's why I decided myself to go back to law school. I've gone from bachelor's, master's to doctorate in my area. But I decided, let me go to study law, because these people keep on saying the law is clear. Both of them They're opposing each other in court, but all of them say, no, it's clear.
clear
They
to
mix
them.
up everyone.
It's clear to them.
It's not clear. And if it's clear, we could have a stand. So in Islam, abortion is not allowed because Quran tells us that وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ خَشْيَةَ إِمْلَاقٍ. Don't kill your children because of fearing consequences. And the consequences, some of them are economic and social. But what I'm trying to say, Islam is clear. In that, we Muslims, we know that, yes, we are in Kenya. You know, Wakili is saying that we are all united by law in circumstances, and there's limitation for Muslims.
Right.
We are, for example, in Kenya, taking alcohol is legal, but for Islam, it's illegal. So in that, you can take, but I'm a Muslim, I cannot do it. So what I'm trying to say, Islam is clear also on matters of abortion, as I said. If it's rape, my brother, we cannot allow this girl to live with the consequences and psychological torture of what happened. So we allow her to abort. But the abortion must be before the 121st day.
Yeah.
You get that one. And if it's a matter of now, if you're in marriage, Islam allows usage of condom so that you don't just go do things, then when pregnancy comes, you want to alter pregnancy. And there is a danger in Kenya, which I want to alert everyone to. People are taking things, you know, everyone talks of legal.
Yeah.
We have forgotten God. We are all forgetting God. So in Islam, we are told, al-ilmu min al-mahdi ila-Allah. Knowledge begins from when you are born till when you are dead. Same, life begins from there. So what we are trying to say, for example, currently in Kenya, you see everyone now talking about cremation. It's my life, it's me. You burn me. That's not your body according to Islam. That is God's body. It should be taken to the soil. So what I'm trying to say is that the same thing now, when you talk of now life of a child, that child, as soon as conception comes, that's not yours anymore. It's not the father or the mother. That's God's creation. Because if we allowed, abortion was allowed, my brother, you could not be here speaking. All of us could not be here speaking if we were aborted by our parents.
If I could just jump in quickly.
Right, and everybody now has to keep it brief because we're running so short of time.
Just about when does life start? Medically, the heart of the baby starts beating 3 weeks after the lady misses her period. Is that a living being? Do you now have a right over a living being, even if it's in your womb? The law recently, they started saying that you cannot kill somebody unless they have been born. So you can only kill somebody if they have been born. What about that baby who is kicking in the womb? Is that a live person? Do you now have a right over somebody because they don't have the power?
Yeah.
And if you deliver a child, do you now have a right again over that child? Because if you kill a child after if it's been born, that's murder. So is it not the same for the baby who is in the womb?
I think the debate then comes in, going back to what he said, is be that as it may, and despite all the different circumstances, why isn't it up to the woman to decide what she wants to do? We literally have time for like one more comment from everyone, unfortunately, but we will continue the conversation outside of the live. Your thoughts on A, the law is not clear, B, all these things are inclusive, and yes, there's a lot of women who have access, but it's not happening. Then why are we here debating? There's obviously something wrong. If you could just comment on that briefly.
Thank you.
Both
Quickly,
of you.
In response to you, because of the diversity and opinions and our various standpoints, that is why the Constitution tried to set standards, and that is why now the explanation that doctors and all of us must work with is within that constitutional framework. If you fall to your religion, follow the religion. Outside the religion, the law applies equally. Two, we have a challenge in access to abortion services and reproductive health services because of stigma. When we bring our personal persuasion to try and determine for other people what they need to do or how they need to live outside what the law provides. Ask yourself a simple question. Why do we just agree, for example, that robbers with violence or murderers should be sentenced to death? It is the same question. We need to apply the law and be fair and allow access to reproductive health services, including abortion. I
wish we had room. We were supposed to hear from some of the ladies in the audience, but we will. We will in just a moment. Unfortunately, we do have to end the live, but we'll continue the conversation in a few moments. But if this debate is to move a step further, it will require people from both sides of the argument to move a step away from their entrenched positions, which we've heard tonight. This will mean deeper and creative discussions around the sensitive issues that surround abortion, and above all, we need access to information, a lot of information, and probably more forums like this just to get to the nitty-gritty as to why the abortion debate continues. Please keep the conversation going online on Twitter. Use here the hashtag #HereAndNowKE. We will continue to have a conversation right here, but for now I'll hand it back over to the NTV studios. I'm Janet Mbugua. A huge thank you to Fairview Hotel for allowing us to host this debate here. And we'd like to hear your views, pro-choice, pro-life, and whether at all there's any form of compromise on this very contentious issue. Thank you for watching. Over to the studio. Good night.